At the beginning of the school day, Daniel walks in and is greeted by everyone. But something feels off. No one is wearing their school uniforms. I wonder why that would be. That's right, it's a day for a school outing. The panel shifts to show Daniel's outfit, and some students off to the side whisper to each other that he looks almost like a different species because of how good-looking he is. The teachers gather all the students to discuss the rules and other important details. Daniel shares that he doesn't have the best memories from his middle school outing, but he's confident this time will be different thanks to his new and improved body. He hops onto one of the buses and heads straight for the seat next to the teacher, the spot he was always stuck in. The teacher glances at him, wondering if he lost a bet or something. Just then, Zach and his friends call him from the back of the bus, offering him the best seat available. Nervously, he walks over, stepping into a territory he never thought he could access before. The bus is starting rolling down the road, and we can see everyone engaged in a game. Mira is the last one to close her hands, which means she's about to get slapped. But it turns out Zach is the one who has to do it. The group encourages him to hit her hard since she's been winning all the rounds so far. Mira looks up at Zach, clearly nervous. Zach shuts his eyes, raises his hands, and slowly brings them down to tap Mira's hands gently. The others start yelling at Zach, accusing him of going easy on her just because she's a girl and calling him a pervert. Zach's face turns red, and Daniel chuckles a bit, saying that he's having so much fun. Meanwhile, the other bus, which is just carrying the architecture crew, is completely quiet. Jace thinks to himself that the vibe is really tense. Vasco, who couldn't sleep because he was too excited, now has dark circles under his eyes. To lighten things up, Jace decides to take off his shirt and suggests they have a dance party. Everyone joins in, taking off their shirts and chanting, "Nipple party, nipple party." The bus driver slumps into his seat, wondering to himself, why everyone at this school seems to be crazy. Vasco feels relieved that Jace has lightened the mood, but it couldn't have come at a worse moment. The beauty department bus pulls up right next to them, and we see girls getting cozy with Eli. At that moment, the entire architecture crew bursts into tears. All the buses stop for a bathroom break, and they discover a punching machine. Zach is the first to take a swing and sets a new record of 892. Not long after, Vinjin steps up and surpasses Zach with a score of 902. "Did I just break your record, Zach?" Vinjin taunts. "How can you call yourself a man?" But before he can finish, Zach smashes the hammer record that Vin just set. He fires back, asking Vin if he still considers himself a man after losing his record. The two get in each other's faces, trading insults, but they soon get distracted when Vasco and Daniel notice the punching bag and hammer. In the next scene, Vin Jin and Zach watch as Daniel tears apart the punching bag, while Vasco demolishes the hammer machine. The duo heads to the bathroom, but they're interrupted by another guy whose stream is so powerful it's spraying everywhere. They ask the two guys how old they are with really scary looks on their faces, and the guys on the other side of the bathroom say they're 17. Zach teases them by calling them little babies, even though he's 17 too. The guy with the strong stream insults Vin Jin, saying that he wears clothes that rappers wear, but he's a fake rapper because he's never heard of him. They part ways, but agree that if they cross paths again, it's going to end in a big fight. Everyone gets back on the bus, and soon they arrive at their destination. Daniel yawns as he steps onto the pavement, but before he can take it all in, someone yells for everyone to line up. It's the camp instructors. Some of the girls whisper about how good-looking one of the instructors is, but they complain about the other one and hope they don't end up in his group. The attractive instructor greets everyone and tells them that for safety reasons, they'll need to check their bags. The 3-night, 2-day school camp has officially started. The instructors begin searching through their bags and discover a bottle of alcohol hidden inside a Pringles can. They also uncover a pack of cigarettes stashed in a sealed bag of chips. As a consequence, the instructors make everyone who had contraband do exercises as punishment. The attractive part-time instructor instructs everyone to put their bags away in their rooms and prepare for some games. We see a group of students engaged in a game where they have to pass a ball from one side to the other, using only a piece of pipe that each person receives. Jace looks over at them and rolls his eyes at their enjoyment of such a childish game. Meanwhile, Vasco watches the ball game with excitement. his eyes shining. In the next scene, the construction department is playing the game with intense focus, as if their lives depend on it, and Vasco is thrilled. They move on to another game where they must form groups based on the number called out by the instructor. When the number 3 is announced, Jace and Blondie cling to Vasco, while the guy who previously tried to challenge him gets eliminated. Vasco glances over and sees Li being embraced by 4 girls, and he can't help but feel a tear roll down his cheek. The talent show is about to start, and the bakery team is impressively chopping up fruits and veggies at lightning speed, leaving everyone in awe of their skills. Following that, the beauty department takes the stage for a group dance, twirling their hair as they move. Once the dance wraps up, Duke takes over the stage, delivering powerful lyrics that send the crowd into a frenzy over his rapping talent. Vin Jin can't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Meanwhile, Daniel thinks to himself how happy he is to have joined the school outing. After the talent show, it's time for lights out, and everyone needs to settle down for the night. Du guides everyone to a room where the 4 girls from the beauty department are still hanging out. Daniel glances at the alcohol and wonders if he'll be pressured to drink again. Zach announces that he has plans with someone else and invites Daniel to join him. The 4 girls are left surprised that the only 2 guys they were excited to chat with have suddenly disappeared. Zach knocks on a door and Mira appears. We see Daniel, Zach, and Jiho sitting on the floor, captivated by the green light Mira created by placing her phone under a 7-Up bottle. Yui then asks if anyone wants to play Truth or Dare or have a drink. Mira tells Yui that she's a lightweight, so she'll probably be the first to get drunk. Zoe jumps in to comfort Mira, mentioning that both Daniel and Zach are also lightweights. Jiho has started to drink for the first time. As the night goes on, it's clear that after the drinking game, everyone is completely wasted except for Mira, who hasn't had a drop of alcohol. Later, the instructors burst into the rooms, but everyone in Mira's room has already left, so they don't get caught. The only ones who face trouble are those in Du's room. We switch scenes to see Daniel in his original body running. Since he has some time off work, he's decided to go for runs while his other body sleeps to build up his stamina. He jogs past a convenience store where the owner is looking at his computer. The screen shows photos from school camp, featuring attractive girls in revealing outfits. The owner notices that all these posts are from the same person and starts to wonder who's been secretly taking these pictures. Daniel wakes up to the start of the second day at camp, only to discover that while he was sleeping, some of his friends had drawn on his face. Unfortunately, Jiho had it worse. He's covered in doodles from head to toe. The first activity of the day is rafting, and we see the part-time instructor having a blast with Mira and another girl. They're clearly enjoying themselves, unlike the other raft, which has the shorter instructor. The group there looks frustrated and upset, wishing they could be with the more attractive instructor instead. The main instructor turns his gaze toward Mira, and she catches his eye, puzzled about why he's looking at her. As the day comes to a close, everyone receives candles to honor those who came before them and made this camp possible. Zach starts to reflect on his parents and feels emotional. The mood becomes sentimental, and some girls begin to cry as they think of their moms. Mira looks up and notices the short instructor stealing another glance at her. It's lights out again, but the construction department has other plans. They're caught up in a wild pillow fight, and Jace invites Vasco to join in. In the next scene, we see the traitor being tossed out the door headfirst. Meanwhile, Mira and Zach are out for a nighttime stroll, chatting away. Daniel and Jiho are tucked in bed, and Daniel starts reminiscing about all the fun they've had at camp, excited that he gets to go home tomorrow. Over with the instructors, they're indulging in all the confiscated alcohol, arguing that it would be a shame to waste it, so they decide to enjoy it instead. The main instructor thinks to himself that they're all unprofessional for drinking while on duty. He announces that he's heading to the warehouse. No one gets me, he thinks to himself. I need to find her. We can see one of Mira's revealing photos on his phone. When he opens the door, he finds the part-time instructor and Mira carrying boxes. The main instructor yells at him, questioning why he's with a student after hours. The part-time instructor casually explains that Mira was wandering alone, and as a consequence, she has to help him with the boxes. He shoots a disapproving look, and Mira starts to feel uneasy about the whole situation. The charming instructor turns his back and assures her that once she's done helping, he'll send her back to her room to rest. The instructor suddenly seizes the moment and tackles him to the ground, throwing punches at the part-timer's face. Mira feels a rush of fear and confusion, unsure of how to react. Just then, the main instructor's phone slips from his pocket, and she catches a glimpse of a photo of herself undressing. Her eyes widen in shock, and she pushes the short instructor away. Furious, she demands to know why the main instructor has such pictures of her. Meanwhile, the part-timer starts to stomp on his senior, while Mira urges him to report the main instructor to the police. He turns to her, grateful for her help. The scene shifts to Daniel, who has been pulled back into the store. His boss instructs him to hang up a poster, but as he does, something grabs his attention. His eyes widen, and his jaw drops when he sees the attractive instructor, who turns out to be a rapist. Back at the camp, the instructor shows his true nature. Mira's breathing quickens as she realizes she's in a perilous situation. She screams for help, but the part-timer explains that the warehouse is too far from the camp for anyone to hear her. He then punches her in the stomach to silence her. The not-so-handsome instructor prepares to undress Mira, asking her which piece of clothing he should start with. He begins to take off his pants while explaining how he landed this job. It turns out the camp administrator checks everyone's documents, so he had to swipe his brother's papers instead. He licks his lips and reassures himself that Mira really loves him, like, a lot. The short instructor manages to regain his senses and goes after the part-timer again. But just as he gets close, the part-timer kicks him in the leg, making him stumble. As he falls, he seizes his head and slams it into his knee. Mira watches in tears. "Let's keep going, I don't have much time," says the grapist, as he strides toward Mira. Meanwhile, we switch to Zach, who is asking Yui and Zoe where Mira is, and they both tell him she still hasn't come back. He reflects on how strange it was when they said goodnight. Mira mentioned she was heading straight to bed because she was tired, so she wouldn't be out drinking. Suddenly, Zoe receives a call from an unknown number and answers it with caution. When the caller introduces himself as Daniel from the convenience store, Zoe's expression brightens. He tells her he has something serious to discuss, so she needs to pay close attention. Daniel instructs her to wake up Daniel. Daniel is now awake in his big body. Without hesitation, he grabs the phone and calls the police to report their situation. But they inform him that since they are in the mountains, it will take about 30 minutes for help to arrive. Just then, a bag falls to the ground, revealing Zach with an expression unlike anything we've seen before. He heard everything. He quickly turns around and bolts toward the warehouse. Zoe approaches Daniel and tells him to lower his voice since people are trying to sleep. We're back at the warehouse, where we see Mira huddled in a corner with the main instructor lying unconscious on the floor. The graper questions Mira about her tears, saying that now that there are no distractions, they can get back to their work. Mira begs him, promising not to report him to the police if he lets her go. This seems to trigger something in the graper, and he forces Mira down onto the ground. He starts hitting her in the face, yelling that she was the one who flirted with him first, and that none of this is his fault. We see Mira's bloodied face as she looks up at the man looming over her. She tries to kick him off, but he doesn't move. The crazed man begins to undress her, but just before he can do anything worse, Zach bursts through the door, looking like he wants to take a man's life. He charges ahead without any hesitation. Graper notices this and gets ready to fight, realizing Zach has some skills, but Zach is too consumed by anger to notice the kick coming from below. As he starts to fall, the part-timer grabs his head and aims for another knee strike. Zach finds himself caught in the part-timer's hold and attempts to use dirty boxing by throwing a punch behind the head, but he gets pushed down before he can land a hit. Seizing the opportunity, Graper delivers a knee right to Zach's ribs, breaking a few in the process. He follows up with another knee to Zach's head. Meanwhile, Mira is stuck in the corner, helplessly watching her boyfriend get beaten up. We see Daniel and the gang searching for Zach, with Daniel worried that it might take a long time to find him since the camp is so big. Zach is still standing against Graper, but just barely. Both of his arms are broken, and he has several cracked ribs. Graper licks his lips and tells Zach that it's time to finish this. Just as he's about to deliver the final blow, the short instructor manages to grab his ankle, distracting him for just a moment. Zach sees his chance to get up close to the part-timer and completely wreck his face. The Graper thinks he can take the hit and counterattack, but Zach is one step ahead. He quickly readies his left fist and slams it into the Graper's face. Now that the guy is on the ground, Zach starts landing punch after punch. Just then, the police and the gang arrive, and Mira tries to pull Zach away from the part-timer. The police take the Graper into custody, and the students start murmuring, questioning if they've got the right guy. We see Won Bin on a stretcher, thinking he managed to save the kids, but he overhears some students wishing he was the one getting arrested because of his looks. Zach catches their attention and challenges them to say it again, insisting that Won Bin is a hero. He even bows his head in respect. The next day, both of them are in the hospital together. Mira is slicing apples for them, thanking the two for saving her, and Zach can't help but blush a bit.